clowns, and welcome to another episode of This Just In. Today we're going to be talking about Scream 3. So, if you can tell by my thumbnail, Scream 3 is kind of an aggravating movie, in a nutshell. To me, this is the most forgettable one. If the fact they weren't dealing with Stab 3 as the plot with this one, I don't know if that makes it more forgettable or the only thing that's kind of redeeming about it. But overall, it's just a forgettable movie. When I'm going to watch a Scream movie, this is the one that I rewatch the least. It is my least favorite. The kills in it suck. That's about the best I can say for it, is the kills in this movie kind of suck. And the setup for a lot of things is dumb to me. Kicking it off right in the beginning, Cotton Weary getting the phone call. Somebody's going to hurt his girlfriend. The person's in the house with the girlfriend. We hear Cotton Weary's voice talking because in this Scream, the killer has a voice changer that can change to anybody's voice that it records, I'm guessing. So, anyways, and whether the peaks go up and down or everything else, it still sounds exactly like that person, which is 100% unrealistic. Because if I use a voice changer on my phone and I scream in it, it changes completely what it sounds like. So that part's kind of far-fetched, and the whole voice changing like that to me was completely far-fetched. But right at the beginning, his girlfriend gets killed and Cotton Weary gets killed in a very unceremonious kind of way. Like, for a character who was meh in the first one, had that little tiny scene, but it was still talked about a lot. And then in the second one, he was kind of a focal point, and he was kind of the hero, to get offed right away in the third one. I don't know if that was their way of like trying to say like all bets are off, anything can happen type of deal, but I don't know. I just thought it was kind of bland. And then we meet Sydney hiding out on a ranch, trying to stay away from people. Has changed her name for her job, which she does remotely, so she was ready for COVID way before the rest of us were. But she hides out there with her dog, and she doesn't meet anybody. We see her dad from the original one, same guy. He talks about how she needs to interact with people and that it's not good being out there by herself and alone. And here's where like another one of my gripes with this movie come in, because Scream is a franchise that's fairly grounded. Like, it pokes fun at horror, but it's a grounded series. And in here we get to see the ghost of Sydney's mom, and she looks like, I don't know, demonish, possessed. Like, she looks like a scary ass ghost, which makes no fucking sense, because if she was having a flashback of seeing her mom, she would see her mom in a positive way, not as an angry coming to fucking get you kind of ghost. And the whole subplot of her mom as the ghost, and even in the ending when the wind blows, that kind of analogy thing they use, I think that's just completely stupid. Because there's nothing supernaturally about Scream. Yes, the killer's name is Ghostface, but there's never been an actual ghost. And in this one, we meet the cast and crew of Scream 3, well, Stab 3. The people who are portraying the people in real life. We got Dewey's replacement. We've got the new Gale Weathers. We've got a new Sidney Prescott. We meet Roman, the director. We meet the head of the studios and how they're thinking about shutting down the movie because of the killing. We do get one cop who has some dry ass humor that's quite comical when they ask him if the movie has anything to do with this killing, and he looks at the guys and he goes, "The movie you're working on is called Stab. He was stabbed." Great delivery, great line. This one I don't think has as much. I think it goes too hard for the humor and it doesn't like land. But that was one of those like dry humor moments that I thought was actually pretty comical. But for the most part, the humor in this movie doesn't land like it did in the previous ones. I mean, I can go on a whole rant and rave. I did write some things down so I could keep track of shit that annoyed me when I was watching the movie, because there was quite a few. But as we follow it along, we meet them. Gail steps back in the picture because Count Weary died, so she's coming to get a story. Dewey's actually helping on the Stab 3 movie. He's like a consultant because he lived through it all. And they meet each other, and somehow they hate each other, even though they were almost like lovers at the end of the last one, I guess. Like, she left in his van, the ambulance, instead of doing the story like she did in the first one. So I felt like there was something growing there, and they just want to keep them apart for some reason or another. There's not a whole lot of Sydney in this movie. So it feels like she's an afterthought for being the final girl from the first two and the main focal point. But in this one, she's not there a whole lot. In between, we do get some more people dying. There's the one actress who gets called in by Roman, and then he's rewriting the script where she dies and then kills her. The kill is okay. It's like a stab to the back, and I know she gets smashed through a window. We get the bodyguard. So once another person dies, they shut down the movie, and all the actors and actresses are meeting together at one place. And at this place, she hired a bodyguard, and the bodyguard always makes fun of Deputy Dewey. But he gets a phone call from Deputy Dewey to go into his trailer so that he can get something for him. And when he goes in there, Ghostface is in there, stabs him quite a few times. We think he's dead. Then we hear a doorbell ring, and they open the door, and he walks out in front, and then he falls. And they know, oh shit, killer's here. And then the lights go out and the power goes out. And then we get another kill, which is maybe the dumbest setup for a kill ever. Not in any movie, but by far in a fucking Scream movie. So they're printing out a new script because they've all figured out that people are dying in the order in which they died in the movie. The only downfall to that is in the very beginning, Cotton Weary's girlfriend dies. And I don't believe she died in the script, so that kind of logic flaw in there. But anywho, the lights go out and they're getting faxes. So the power's out, but they're still able to receive a fax. I guess because it's hooked up to a phone line and cordless phones still work. But new script is coming out, and they all leave the house smartly when the killer says one of them will survive. They all leave the house, and one guy runs back in to find out what happens, and he lights up a lighter, and it stays lit up long enough for you to be able to read the script of saying the person who survives is the one who smells the gas. And then the whole house blows up. So I guess in that perfect amount of time, the gas made it to the flame and blew it up. It was just kind of a dumb death. And then at this point, they all go flying off of the hill. Gail ends up rolling all the way down. Ghostface Killer goes after her. Dewey shoots at him. He leaves. And we find that he's leaving pictures of Sydney's mom at every one of these kill scenes that he's at, because he has something going on in that storyline. And we find out through lovely detective work that Gail and Dewey and Gail's actress do, that she used to be an actress in Hollywood, and the guy who's making the Stab movies had directed her in 3 movies of his own, and she was a victim of the times where if you wanted to get anywheres, you fucked your director. And she had had some unwanted attention, and she did what she had to do because she wanted to keep working. But then I guess she got sick of that lifestyle and she ran off to Woodsboro. She must not have been a huge, huge fan of that. Which was ironically that they Scream 3 props, even though I don't really care for the movie. One of the first movies to tackle the directors are sleazy and forcing people to have sex to get what they want in life. They were one of the first people to tackle it way before there was ever a #MeToo movement and stuff like that. So they were on the forefront of that. So we'll give Wes Craven some credit there. Oh, and I didn't say this in the beginning, but this was the first film not written by Kevin Williamson. And God, you can tell it because the humor is just not there. And the smartness in the movie, for the most part, feels like it's missing too. Like, the movie always seems like it's winking and nodding at you for Scream 1 and 2. And in this one, it just feels like it's going for, I bet you don't think we're this dumb. But maybe we are. But then we get Sydney, who comes in finally to play in this movie. And she's going to help out with the case because she's been through this before. We also get to meet Randy, who died in the first movie, or in the second movie. His little sister meets them at this movie place, and she has a tape which has Randy on it. And it has Randy explaining the rules to survive a trilogy. And for this one, I think what he says is dumb. Because I've watched a lot of horror movies in my lifetime, and not a lot of part 3s go back to the beginning or rewrite the history of the first one like he says in the rules. I don't want to look at it because I know I have his exact rules on here. Alright, let's see. Going back to the beginning, discovering something that we thought was true before but wasn't. Killer is superhuman, and anyone can die. That's his rules for the trilogy. And when he talks about going back to the beginning and stuff like that, he kind of references like Star Wars and stuff, which isn't a horror movie. So that's not really helpful in a sense. I felt like it was the most far-fetched way to try to explain what the fuck they're doing in this movie, but not letting you know ahead of time. So for guessing who the killer could be, you might guess who it is, but you won't know the reasoning behind it until he does his big monologue. So after this, Roman is having himself a big-ass party at the studio head's house because it's his birthday, and he deserves to celebrate. And he's drunk off his ass with a few of the cast members. They all kind of divvy up and go where they want to. Dewey and Gail get a phone call to meet Sydney at this house, so they drive over there thinking she's there. She's not. Ghostface has got everybody's voice. And in this whole part, they split up. There's kind of like spook scares and stuff like that in here. Gail does end up finding Roman in a case with a knife stabbed in him. She checks his pulse. Then they leave, her and fake Gail, or part-time Gail. And they run into the black guy. I don't remember his name. He was the actor who was playing the Randy Meeks type character. And he gets probably the most brutal death with the stabbings and stuff. But they also do like a cartoony thing where when he's running away, they pull the rug and he does like an entire flip and lands on his face. And then he's thrown off a balcony too. Like this, I guess this is part of my problem with part 3 is I couldn't tell you his name because I don't remember his name. The characters for this one are not very memorable. I mean, I don't even remember the girl's real name who plays Gail. So she's fake Gail to me. And I really don't remember the girl who plays Sydney. I know she ends up dying in this setup as well. And we get down to where Gail and Dewey are the only ones left after fake Gail is stabbed a bunch of times against a mirror, but it's one of those two-way mirrors, so people that were on the other side of the mirror could see what's happening in this bedroom. So gross director, gross movie producer, has a room with a bunch of mirrors that people could stand behind and watch people doing the dirty. But she is stabbed to death there, and they find her too late. There is the chase and the whole fight, and Dewey getting punched in the face and all that good stuff. Gail gets chased down, and they end up in a basement. And Gail thinks that the killer's knocked out. She yells to Dewey, and when Dewey comes running over, the killer gets up, and he throws his knife up the stairs at Dewey and hits Dewey in the forehead with the butt end of the knife, which somehow knocks Dewey out, and he rolls down the stairs, and then Gail covers him like, no, please don't. And then we go to Sydney, who is now being called by Ghostface because he has Dewey and Gail locked up, and he wants Sydney there now. So Sydney comes, she shows up, he has her do some metal detector on her foot, which reveals that there is a gun. He makes her throw the gun into the water, which, smart on his part. As she goes inside, she starts to try to untie her friends. Ghostface comes out, and she shoots him 2 or 3 times in the chest, and he falls down. At this point, she goes to untie them, but she looks over, and the killer is gone. Gunshots didn't work because he's superhuman. And then we see Kincaid, the detective who's been protecting Sydney and trying to figure all this stuff out. He pops out, and she's worried about him until Ghostface comes up behind Sydney, and he intervenes. He gets the shit kind of beat out of him. Sydney takes off and ends up going into a bookshelf. Like, she pulls the bookshelf, and it leads to a secret room, which is where there's a private viewing. It was a hidden room, so they could view videos. They mentioned it in the beginning when they first showed this house. So that was like your little hint clue. This is what's going to happen here. As she goes in there, she sees this figure that's underneath like almost in like a body bag or a sheet covered in blood with her mother's voice coming from it. Which part of the whole Sydney's mom thing that was stupid was there was a scene which I thought was cool of where they were on the set of Stab 3, which was rebuilding Woodsboro, and she went through the whole chase scene like she did before and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's a cool homage. And she throws the killer off the balcony. He does land on a bed because obviously this is just a set. But she goes into the crime scene room, which was about her mother, and it shows the body laying there under the blood. And then it stands up and is talking to her. And she gets scared shitless. But what is all this supernatural ghost bullshit? It's just extra bullshit for stupid sake. It makes no sense in a Scream movie. Back to their spot, though, when the Ghostface comes off, pulls off his mask, and it is Roman. So to cut short, Gail checked his pulse. I guess she is a little too stupid to check pulses because she believed he was dead. Yeah, she thought he was dead. But Sydney is shocked, as all of us are, because she's never met him. She's never seen him. She didn't interact with any of the cast for the most part of the Stab 3 film. She never went to the set. She's never seen Roman. Ever. And then he reveals that he's her half-brother. Because when her mommy was in Hollywood and decided to sleep with the executives to get a job, she got pregnant. And then she must have just gave the kid up for nothing. So he went to go see Mommy when he got old enough, and Mommy disowned him and wanted nothing to do with him. So then he videotaped Mommy going around town sleeping with everybody. He told Billy and showed him the tape got Billy and Stu to kill Maureen. And then they did it on their own of the whole killing a bunch of other people. But he's the reason why they did what they did. So that is another annoying thing. I have my little list here I'll go through at the end. But that retcons the first movie and ruins what was a awesome movie in a sense. Like, this is why I don't like to pretend this one exists very often. If I'm watching movies, I don't watch 3. I generally skip it because it's just not very good. But they have their whole huge fight. And this one, Sydney is more badass and on the attack. Eventually, he does get the upper hand, and he does shoot Sydney twice in the chest. She falls down. And then when she gets up, she stabs him with an ice pick. Because guess what? She was wearing a bulletproof vest, which he also revealed when they shot him earlier. He was wearing a bulletproof vest. Dewey and Gale do make it in the room at some point, and when they think the killer is dead, they go, don't really, this doesn't happen. Obviously, the killer always comes back. And when he stands up, Dewey, being a cop, and you can see the bulletproof vest, still shoots him in the chest like 6 times. And then eventually she yells at him, Sydney does, to shoot him in the head, and he shoots him in the head. And that's how he dies. And then the movie ends with Kincaid, the detective, Sydney, Gale, and Dewey all at Sydney's house, watching a movie and eating some popcorn. Dewey does propose to Gale with a ring inside the Woodsboro murderers book. And Sydney leaves her door open. Well, she leaves it unlocked, and then it blows open, which is where I said that's like the mom part thing. And that's how the movie ends. So, overall, things I thought were stupid about this movie, because I don't normally rant about a movie, and I'm not very, screaming, yelling kind of person. But, for one, Sydney's barely in the movie. I think that's a complete loss since she is the star. The Ghost Mom is a stupid, supernatural-ish storyline that makes no fucking sense for a series that is grounded as hell. It's almost like it could fucking happen. The guy who blows up in the house because he fucking lights a match to be able to read it, and it lasts long enough to us read and watch him kill. The whole brother story, I think, is stupid. This director is magically now her half-brother and been searching for her his whole life. If it was such a big deal, why the fuck didn't he interact with her when he went to go see her mom? If he could interact with Billy to show him her fucking everybody, he could have interacted with Sydney then. The original. Fucking with the original. You don't fuck with the original. That's just stupid. The bulletproof vest, because that's why we can shoot him, so he's not supernatural, but the dead mom stuff is supernatural. Doesn't make too much sense. The rules for the trilogy, like I said, I think they're just there because they help explain why this storyline goes where it does. And Gale checking a pulse. Gale's been around 100 dead bodies. She's a reporter, and she can't tell that he's got a fucking pulse. Or he's probably breathing if you sat there long enough. I mean, I don't think he can hold his breath and stop his pulse. He's not that much of a magician. So, overall rating on this movie is a 2.5. I was thinking this would be in the 3s or something like that, but I watched it again, and I just don't like this movie very much. I always thought that there's not really a bad Scream movie, but I do think this is a bad Scream movie. It's not as bad as some franchises go. Freddy's Dead is atrocious. Halloween 5, if you saw my ranking on that and review, that one is way worse. So this isn't like bottom of the barrel. But there is so much fucking wrong with this movie, and you can tell that it had a different writer on it. Because the smart, quirky humor that you get from Scream is missing. And this one is just dumb humor dialed up really high, and it almost treats it as if, we're not gonna catch on. I feel like it's dumb to the audience, which is fucking stupid. Alright guys, that's my review. Next we're going to be doing Scream 4. Don't forget to give me a like, subscribe, share this with anybody who might want to watch it. And until the next one guys, rest in peace.